forward into what is a traditional Saturday game week. So just wanted to share. So Coach will get us started here in a minute, and then we'll be joined by QB Coach Matt Lombardi, as well as DB Safety Coach Brian Belichick, and then student athletes Caleb Hood and Tamari House after that. Obviously a short week coming off the Monday night game, but for future planning for you all, on a traditional Saturday game week, we'll have Coach available on Mondays and Wednesdays, and he'll be joined on those 2 days by student athletes, usually a couple each day. In addition, on Wednesdays of the Saturday game week, we'll make 2 coaches available, 2 assistant coaches, coordinators, some combination, but it'll be 1 from offense and 1 from defense, just for your planning purposes. In addition to that, we don't have time set for those 2, including next week. We'll get that to you as soon as we can, but just hopefully that helps you plan a little bit. So, any questions, reach out to Justin or I. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks. Okay, so it's a quick turnaround for us this week. I think the guys have really embraced the short week, and we're going as fast as we can to put the TCU game behind us and move on here to Charlotte. So as far as Charlotte, we already kind of talked about TCU. As far as Charlotte goes, they're probably feeling about the same as we did. They were in a really competitive game there, late in the second quarter. Kind of as we were, and then it got away from a little bit against App State, kind of like our game did against TCU. So, sure both teams will be looking to rebound off of last week's games. And, this is a team that, again, has a lot of new faces, new coaching staff. We certainly looked at a lot of what they've done, Coach Altman has done at Ohio U, and some of the coaches came with it from there. But they've also put together a staff that has some people that weren't from Ohio U, so it's a little bit to take in a shorter time span. But we knew what the schedule was, so we did some work on these guys in the offseason as well. So they have a real explosive returner in Rutledge. He probably is one of the best ones that we faced this year. Obviously Harold, quarterback, we know about him, and the offense that Coach Altman runs there is. Also with Coach Fish, similar to what they did at LSU. And so similar to some of the things that TCU did in terms of going no huddle and tempo, and getting the plays from the sideline based on the defensive looks, things like that. A lot of 11 personnel. Similar to what TCU did, not the same, but similar. And then defensively, this is a disruptive defense. They really try to knock the offense back, negative plays, pressure. A lot of stunning up front, and so they just try to cause disruption, and they do a good job of that. They get you into some long yard situations, some second and 10s, some third and 10s, and a lot of pressure on you. But as I said, in the kicking game, Rutledge is the big guy in the return game. Boyd, of course, we have here is a solid player, and they play hard on special teams. So overall, a good, well balanced team that's picking up a new system and kind of finding their way. Like I said, maybe a little bit like we are.
We'll get started right here in front center.
Bill, Rob Baxley, Fayetteville Observer. Coming out of the film review, during the film review, what were your biggest points of emphasis with the team?
Yeah, well, look, give TCU credit now. It's a good football team, and they played well. But a lot of our problems were self-inflicted. The turnovers, we got two turnovers for touchdowns. Defensively, couldn't convert on a couple third and longs. Gave up a couple long runs that were just not well defended. So our special teams weren't particularly good either. Short punt, drop snap, and so forth. Block field goal or block extra point. We're lucky on that one. So just kind of in every area, things that we need to tighten up. And as I said, TCU is a really good football team. I think that some of our deficiencies got exposed, and we'll address them and hopefully get them to a level that is a competitive level that they need to be at.
On the right front row.
No, I stopped turning this way for a second. Of all the newness that comes for you with coaching in college, you're going to be coaching on Saturday in a place that holds 15,000. To me, is that the smallest venue you've ever coached in? And how nice is it knowing that there's still newness for you at this point in your career to be able to go out there and coach in a place like that?
Thanks. You know, during the COVID year, I mean, we played in front of a couple hundred people in bigger stadiums. So, you know, again, we control what we control. So we control how we prepare, how we play, and how many people aren't there, and whatever the weather is, and all those things. We have no control over. We can just control our preparation, our performance, our attitude, and how competitive we play, and that's what we're going to focus on. But yeah, well, I mean, whatever it is, it is. You know, it's we honestly take the approach we can, you know, play anywhere, anytime, you know, day and night, you know, home away in a parking lot, you know, in North Carolina, you know, wherever it is. Just, you know, we got to be ready to play when the games are scheduled. We control what we can control.
Back right.
Hey Bill, Todd Walter from WRAL. You know, in the NFL where the top level is relatively flat, right, because the salary cap, you know, you were known for out scheming teams, I would say. Now that you've got one college game under your belt, how do you kind of view how that could work in college where the top levels are so different and you can't still scheme? You just kind of understand what I'm saying, like scheming versus talent, what outweighs each other?
Well, I think as a coach, you're always trying to do what's best for your team, period, whatever that is. So you try to put the players in the best position, put them in. That's your job as a coach, and so that's what I've always tried to do is give my players an opportunity to go out there and play well and do things that they're confident in doing and capable of doing. So you know, I'd say based on Monday night, and I need to do a better job of that. But that's always the goal is to let the players win games, and we have to put them in a position where they can be successful. So we'll do that to the best of our ability.
Right, second row.
Bill, Brian Murphy with WRAL. What did you see out of Gio when you went back and watched the tape? What is the condition of his injury, and have you picked a starter for this week's game?
Yeah, you know, I talked to Gio this morning. You know, he's doing pretty good. So, yeah, look, we all have plays we'd like to have back in the game. Calls, plays, passes, tackles. You know, you name it. You can't participate in a game like that and not feel like there's some things you could have done better or you'd like to do over again. So, learn from those, move on, and get ready for Charlotte. And that's all we can control. We need to learn some lessons from, you know, what happened in the TCU game, but at the same time, there's nothing we can do about that one. It's over with, and you know, we need to move on.
And anticipate him starting this game?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. You know, we haven't practiced yet this week, so we'll see what things look like today. We get out there.
Second row on the left.
Yeah. Aaron Beard with the AP. You mentioned about getting better and technique, coaching, and all these things, but I'm curious, how do you address morale? I realize it's one game, but I would imagine for the guys, it was kind of a shock to the system, the way things unfolded, and morale, confidence, those things, how you might address that.
Yeah, well, every day is an opportunity, and every game is an opportunity. So, you know, we have a competitive group, and you know, I'm sure we'll embrace each day we have to get better, and improve, and our own game day is the opportunity to go out there and play.
Front row on the left. Coach.
Adam Smith, Inside Carolina.
Yeah.
Bill, from the other night defensively, you know, it seemed like a bit of a struggle to get a consistent pass rush for you guys. Like, what would be your overall philosophy in blitzing with this particular group of players that you have? And you know, do you feel like you might have to just start adding guys to the mix to get more pressure?
Well, it's always hard to, you know, talk about rushing the passer when you're behind. It's a lot easier to rush the passer when you're ahead. So, you know, you get in a bunch of pass rush schemes when you're behind and they don't throw the ball. Then you just expose yourself to, you know, running plays and, you know, different gap blocking schemes and stuff that might not necessarily be good against some of those pass blitzes. So, look, the best pass rush is when you know they're going to pass, and if you can dictate those situations, then that's where you should be able to, you know, put your best forward in terms of individual pass rushes and also, you know, scheme rushes based on the protection schemes. So, when you're playing from behind, you know, you don't get as many chances to rush a passer. You got to make them count. But even when you think you have them, they don't really have to throw because you know, score in the situation.
Left second row, please.
Hey, Coach. Do you feel the tempo of TCU's offense exposed some conditioning issues? And if they did, how do you address that this week?
Yeah, I think it was more their execution than tempo. I don't think the tempo was that big of an issue. But they do a good job with it. And we try to disguise things, but they, look at where we are and based on their formation, and then try to pick out plays that, they feel like are good against, what they're seeing from us. So it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game there. But it is what it is, and if that's the style that the offense wants to play, then we have to, play to that. It's what we expected. We'll definitely see some of that this week, but I think it's really more the execution. I don't care what defense we play, we have to tackle better, we have to defeat blocks better. We've got to set the edge of the defense better on those off tackle and outside runs. So we can't get the ball thrown over our head. So if those things don't improve, then we'll be facing some of the same issues against any team. If we can fix some of those, then maybe we can play from ahead and have more opportunities to rush the passer.
Front row middle.
Andrew Jones, Target 24/7. You mentioned a couple weeks ago when we had you in here that the evaluation process would continue into the season. With so much news, so many new guys, it looked like the other night that you guys were rolling a lot of dudes in early. How heavy are you still in the evaluation process with this team?
Yeah, I think some players are pretty well established, and I think there's others that we're kind of trying to figure out what their roles are, and that could change from game to game, regardless of what their skills are. It could be just the way we're playing the game or what we're doing in a particular game plan strategy for that week. So there are a lot of roles that are still evolving on the team. I think, yes, no question about it. That'll probably continue for a while. Again, I always felt like in the NFL, you need about a third of the season, so call it 5 to 6 games to really know what your team really is. So we're probably looking at 4 or 5 games before we feel real good about the best group we can put out there. I think we put the best people we can out there right now, but that may change, and it could certainly change when some of the players get more comfortable, improve, get a little more playing time, gain more confidence. We'll just have to see how that goes. But clearly, some players have established themselves as the best players at their position, and I wouldn't expect any changes there.
If I can stay on that real fast, you finally had a chance to see your team against somebody else, a very good team. Did you get a lot of intel? Was there an awful lot of intel for you and the staff based on what you saw the other night?
Yeah, as I said, I think that some of our deficiencies were certainly exposed by TCU. There were other things that were pretty competitive. We need to shore up the things that we need to shore up, and overall just some fundamental execution of just basic football snaps and catching the ball and tackling and finishing blocks and getting the proper depth on pass routes and all those things that are not we've done before. We know how to do them. We didn't do them consistently enough in the game. We need to be better at that.
Second row on the right here.
Bill, Dave Nathan with the Target Sports Network. When there's a sudden change opportunity in the game, whether it's a turnover or an injury, what are the best tactics to use in practice to prepare for those so everybody knows what to do in the moment?
So we sprinkle those into practice, those sudden change situations, especially in training camp. But it's really a mentality for the players and the coaches, and especially the play callers, not to get into a rut, but if something happens and changes things dramatically in a few seconds, to be able to shift into the new situation. So we hit a long pass or they hit a long play, and now we're in the red area or they're on the goal line or whatever it is, or there's a turnover. You think they're gonna punt, you're gonna get the ball here, you get a turnover, and now you get it in good field position, or vice versa. You think we're gonna punt and we'll have them backed up, and something happens, and now you go in and they got the ball in red zone. So we practice those situations during training camp and sprinkle them in during the season. But it's really a mentality to recognize quickly where we are, forget about how we got there, where we are, and what we need to do going forward.
Second row middle, 2 more here.
Shelby Swanson with the Raleigh News Observer. I'm curious, you spoke today and you've spoken a lot about just Monday to the fundamentals and those not being where you want it to be. To what extent do you feel like that's a result of just so much of a roster overhaul with bringing in 70 new guys, being so active in the spring transfer portal window, and are those fundamentals just in general
think it's more really a question of consistency. It isn't that they don't exist. I mean, there are plenty of plays where, you know, we're doing things well, and then the same fundamental will come up maybe a little bit later, or maybe it came up earlier, and then we got it right. But just the overall consistency of, you know, playing at, 60 or 70% efficiency versus playing at 90%. And, you know, when you have 11 guys out there, if you have one or two that either it's a miscommunication or a lack of awareness or a slow to process some adjustment that we've made or a poor fundamental, and then you have one or two breakdowns. You can have 8 or 9 guys doing the right thing really well, and then if you have one mistake, it could, can blow up the whole play. So there was certainly plenty of those too, where there's a lot of things that were right, but one thing was wrong, and it cost us. So we need more consistency, and we're working on that. We'll get better, but that's what we need to work on. It's not that we don't know how to do it. It's not that we don't do it. There are just some breakdowns, and I'd say schematically we need to, as a coaching staff, do a better job of finding the things that each of our individuals players do well, and try to play more to their strengths as they become more apparent what those are, or conversely, not put them in situations that aren't particularly favorable to them. Try to avoid those. We can do a better job of that too. So that part of that's on us.
Yeah, and then really quick, just to follow on that, is part of that too, just again, you said my team, 5-6 games or so for the
Well, I
players.
said in the NFL, that's kind of what we were working with. I'm not saying it takes you 6 games, but I'd say I felt like the question was about the NFL, or related to NFL. So I said, after about 6 games, I think you really know your team in the NFL. Like, this is who we are, and not too much is going to change going forward unless there's some dramatic injury or something. And then you kind of play to the strengths or weaknesses of that team. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go here. I really don't know, but in that context, my experience was, about a third of the season. So, third of the season here, 3 or 4 games. At some point, things will settle in where this is who we are, this is what we can do, this is what we're going to have trouble doing, things like that. I don't think we're quite there yet, there's not enough evidence.
Last one for the right. Bill, Michael Coe, WCHL.com. The short week is a unique challenge from Monday to Saturday, but you feel after a game like Monday that it's actually a good thing that you can get back on the field and sort of flush that game as soon as possible?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Yeah, I think we're all going to be anxious to play again. They're better than sitting around 2 weeks, feeling like we felt after that game. You got to move on anyway, right? And we moved on. We moved on yesterday, so here we are. It's Charlotte, but we have to recognize what things that need to change in order for the results to change. But yeah, I think everybody will be excited to play Saturday. I don't think anybody wants to wait an extra week to get back on the field. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, Bill. Thank you.
Bill. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.